Hey there, Internet friends, and welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions of the thing. We are continuing along in our summer of Star Wars this week with our first of the standalone Star Wars films. This week is going to be all about Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the film. So yeah, that's going to be a fun, good time. Frank's camera, I see, has gone out of focus, so he's trying to get that shifted back in place. So while he does that, I'm going to tell you that this show is made possible entirely by the support of our patrons over at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. So if you like the show and you can support us over there, we would definitely appreciate it. But if you can't, no big deal. The fact that you're listening is awesome. And of course, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. So joining me today, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
You're reckless, little one. You never would have made it as Obi-Wan's Padawan, but you might make it as mine.
There you go. We have Frank Pisani. How you doing, Frank?
Doing good. I'm happy I finally got to see this one.
There you go. And in a voice-only role, no visual today, Logan Wilkinson. How you doing, Logan?
Baby Jabba Hutt. I'm doing great. I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Stinky lives.
He was the original Grogu.
It's true.
It was like a continuation of the babies that we got in the prequel era. We got, a baby Boba Fett. We got a baby Anakin. We got baby Luke and Leia. So of course you got to round that out with baby. Not a baby Jabba the Hutt, but a baby of Jabba the Hutt, I guess. Yeah. So yes, today is all about Star Wars: The Clone Wars. This was originally released August 15th, 2008. So in between the prequel era and then prior to Disney buying these Lucasfilm and continuing on with the sequel era, we got The Clone Wars. Which was basically the backdoor pilot for this series that would go on to run 7 seasons. And I think that's it. I don't think they're going to come back and do any more because they've repeatedly said that was the final season. But we will see. Other notable releases at the time, I mentioned to Cam and Logan when we talked the other day. This is one of the weirdest bunches of this that I've done. Because I basically reached back because 2008 was, of course, a very, big year for some of the more modern films that we've had in recent era. We kicked off the MCU on May 2nd of 2008 with Iron Man. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out May 22nd of 2008. The Incredible Hulk continued the MCU, sort of, June 13th, kind of back-to-back films there, before they would go on, like, a couple years before, Iron Man 2 and Thor and Captain America came out in, 2010. Yeah. Then we had WALL-E on the Disney Pixar side of things, came out June 27th.
It's a great movie.
The Dark Knight and Mamma Mia, quite the double bill, came out July 18th. And then right before this, we had Tropic Thunder came out August 13th, and then The Clone Wars August 15th. And then I looked through kind of the next few months, and there was really nothing that came out after this. So it was a pretty light end of the year there in 2008. But yeah,
I'm pretty sure the King's Speech came out in December.
I mean, it might have. Yeah, I did not go that far.
Was the King's Speech 2008 or was that 2010?
Pretty sure it was 2008, wasn't it?
Trevor's on the case.
The King's Speech. It was 2010. Yeah.
Okay, I was totally wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember I'm like, usually Oscar bait comes out around then.
I mean, yeah.
What's an example of Oscar bait? The King's Speech. Was the King's Speech out at that time?
King's Speech is a great movie.
King's Speech is such a whatever movie.
It's such a good movie.
Yeah, let's see.
It is. Here's the thing, Logan. You would say that because it is exactly the kind of film that you want. 100%.
I want good movies, and it's a good movie. All right, I love Colin Firth, and it gives me lots of Colin Firth.
It is an Oscar. It is an Oscar checklist movie. That's all that film is.
I'll take it. It's great.
I mean, yeah, I won't argue with that. Let's see.
It appeals to the sentiments of old white men. That's all that film is.
I mean, of course. Yeah, what were the movies of 2008 that kind of fill that camp? Let's see. Rachel Getting Married, I feel like, was somewhere in that conversation.
Ooh, that's a good one.
W. Oliver Stone's W came out around there.
Not great.
I mean, no.
That was a bomb of a film.
Oliver Stone, hasn't made a good movie in 15 years.
Milk, yeah. Milk was probably
Milk is great.
One of the big ones
Milk
there.
is great.
Late November.
Yeah.
Frost Nixon there in December. Yeah.
Oh, another great
totally
film.
Yeah.
I saw this movie Adulthood, and I was like, wait, was that the one that was like 12 years in the making? No, that was Boyhood. Yeah.
Boyhood.
Yeah.
Adulthood, the sequel that came out. Not. You had Doubt, which was a fun one.
That's excellent.
Love that one because it was a play that I saw before that. The Wrestler. That was another one. That was a big one. That was which gave us Mickey Rourke, which gave us Mickey Rourke in the MCU there in Iron Man 2.
That's right.
And then
The Wrestler was so good.
Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Marley and Me, The Spirit. That's a thing I hadn't thought about in a while.
Oh, geez, yeah, that Sin City spinoff.
And Revolutionary Road.
Oof.
Yeah, Kate Winslet.
Yeah,
excellently acted, really film.
Yeah, Spirit, not a Sin City spin-off, but it is Frank Miller and has the same flavors that Sin City had. But yeah,
sure. I was gonna say, what is it? What film you said after Adulthood? What was that film?
It's
Doubt.
Not Doubt. Oh yeah, Doubt.
Yeah, that was that was the next one down on this list. So yeah.
I was gonna say, it was never mind. It was a bit snippy about you, Trevor, about how you get super hipster whenever it comes to that was a theater thing that I saw before it was a movie.
I mean, it was. I got to see. Oh crap! I don't remember her name, but she was she did the role on Broadway and then went on tour, and so I got to see it at Gamage. She's really good. The main lady. Anyway, so yeah, it was a very weird year for films, and this movie was one of the ones that did knock The Dark Knight out of the top spot, but it did not come in number one of that weekend. That did go to Tropic Thunder. It was Tropic Thunder, Clone Wars, and then Dark Knight was number 3, and it's fifth week there, I think.
Yeah. Jeez, Tropic Thunder, how did the hell did that film get made?
Tropic Thunder is such a good
movie. It is definitely a film, most notably, of course, because of RDJ in blackface, but it's a meta commentary about actors in blackface. So there's a whole weird other layer to it. And then you also have that really hilarious performance by Tom Cruise as this
is his big comeback movie.
Yeah.
It was after jumping on the couch and everything was this. And he's unrecognizable as Les Grossman.
Yeah.
Everybody was actually really upset because that role leaked.
Mm-hmm.
And a photo of him in the outfit leaked. So because they were originally wanting people to go in blind on it, not knowing that Tom Cruise was in the film at all.
Yeah.
It's like Matthew McConaughey as Ben Stiller's agent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my god! That film it has amazing roles in it. Yeah. Really great roles in it. Jack Black really doing a very you're oh, it's a typical Jack Black performance, and then he swerves hard as as the drug addict who's willing to do whatever it takes to get his next fix. It's this is crazy. That film is insane.
Yeah, it's very weird because I remember Les Grossman, and I could have sworn it started as an MTV Movie Awards bit, but maybe I've just got it reversed in my head. I thought it was the MTV Movie Awards was first, and then obviously they had maybe done it as a lead into Tropic Thunder or something like that, but I guess maybe it did come after the fact. Anyway, back to this movie. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 38 minutes. And I guess I should say movie in the loosest of quotes, but
we're getting into that.
It was rated as a major motion picture.
It did release in cinemas as a film, yes.
Yeah.
In the Star Wars timeline of things, as I mentioned, this kind of came smack in between the prequel trilogy, which had come out, which had ended with Revenge of the Sith, May 19th, 2005. Then you had this out here 3 years later, August 15th, 2008. And The Force Awakens would grace our screens 7 years later, December 18th, 2015, after Disney bought out Lucasfilm. So yeah, very like just weird all around that this, exists and was a movie and came like this was the first one really that broke the Star Wars releases in May kind of block, which I don't blame them because it would have, it would have been releasing up against the next Indiana Jones, which as bad as it was, did sell seats. So
not the worst Indiana Jones, arguably, though.
Yeah. The roll call here. Who's who of this film? Director Dave Filoni, of course. This was kind of kicking off Dave Filoni's input into the extended Star Wars universe, who had come to Lucasfilm from working on Avatar: The Last Airbender, where he had directed 9 episodes of that show. He would go on to direct, of course, many, many episodes of the Clone Wars animated series, as well as Star Wars Rebels and The Mandalorian. And up next on his plate, he does have The Book of Boba Fett in the cards. The writers of this were Henry Gilroy, Stephen Melching, and Scott Murphy. Henry Gilroy had some writing credits that went all the way back to Batman the Animated Series back in 1992. Stephen Melching had writing credits all the way back to X-Men the Animated Series in 1995, so good lineage from those guys. And Scott Murphy was the new kid on the block whose writing credits went back to 1999, but did include a handful of episodes of the TV show Angel, working alongside, presumably, Joss Whedon on that one.
Not a bad show.
Yeah, I kind of like that one.
I don't think I've ever watched Angel, and I did kind of I don't know, maybe 10 years ago now or something. Time is a weird blur.
Flat circle.
I finally I did a watch through of Buffy a number of years back, but I don't think I ever crossed over into Angel territory.
I'll say this: Buffy was always that show that I really liked, but didn't really have too much of a draw for me. It was up there with the Veronica Mars. These are good. This is good television, but it's not really drawing me in. Also known as the UPN Fair.
Yeah.
Although Buffy was a WB show, oftentimes it felt like it would have fit more in with UPN. Angel, however, was Angel's working as a private investigator and supernatural. It's very deep urban fantasy, urban horror, and it's. I'll never forget one episode where Angel thinks that a dad is possessed by something, and by a demon, and he is beating his children. So he
turned out he was just an abusive father.
No, not at all.
Oh, okay. That definitely seems like the kind of thing Whedon would have pulled in that era.
Yeah, no. Instead, actually, so Angel spikes the food at dinner. And instead, the person who has the reaction that reveals they're actually possessed by the demon is the son, the 8-year-old son. And so it's this whole thing of Angel has to completely revise his entire plan of this exorcism, and it's on the fly, and it but it totally does a great fake out where you're oh shoot, we were wrong, because Angel's just staring daggers at the dad, and the dad so far has been showing Angel we keep locks on the outside of the kids' doors. All this stuff, and it's this is super abusive father, and then it turns out the father's actually he's a tough guy on the outside, super soft on the inside, and he struggles so hard with that, trying to keep his son from hurting his sister and hurting his mom, and that's rough, and it's man, okay, wow, did not expect that. That scene just always stays with me, because they totally do the really bad CGI with the kid's face turning demonic and stuff. Anyway. Weird tangent, but we really don't have much to talk about this film. So.
That's fair. And I just went and looked. I'm Angel, while it did originally air on the WB, it was produced and distributed by 20th Century Fox and 20th Century Television, which is now under the banner of Disney. So who knows? Maybe Angel will make its way to Disney Plus sometime soon, and we'll do an episode there. I imagine that's probably more in the Hulu fare of things, but Who knows? Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's tied up with the Hulu stuff. Also, because like the main actor is like a Fox guy, like Fox Studios dyed blue.
Mm-hmm.
So he was great in Bones.
I was gonna say, like you mentioning that Angel played or was a private detective. I was like, oh, so this was just a Bones prequel. Okay.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
David Boreanaz just knocking it out as the detective character for 20 plus years.
Well, he moved from doing detective character to it's like, well, now in Bones, my detective's a former soldier, and now he's pivoted into doing like a soldier role for a show that he's on now.
Yeah,
like a special forces show. And it's like, David Boreanaz, you have had such a wild career, my dude. At one point, you voiced Squall Leonhardt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's wild. That man's had a wild life and career.
That was a thing. Yeah, that like thinking back to just the point in time that Kingdom Hearts came out, and the who's who of like special guests that are in that game. Weird times.
Never forget our first the first and potentially greatest voice of Sephiroth. Lance Bass.
There you go. Speaking of actors and things, Matt Lanter plays Anakin Skywalker here. Prior to this, he had been in the show Commander-in-Chief, as well as a stint on Heroes. And based on like the character name on Heroes, I'm guessing he was like one of the kids at the high school where Hayden Panettiere went, and was like, one of like her classmates or something, in the whole save the cheerleader, save the world kind of storyline. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Alongside a lot of Clone Wars, he would go on and do live action stuff in the 90210 show. And then he also had a brief cameo in the first season of The Mandalorian in the jailbreak episode. He is the New Republic person on that ship that that basically gets offed. So that was his cameo in Mandalorian. Ashley Eckstein playing Ahsoka Tano here. Prior to this, had done a handful of episodes of That's So Raven and Blue Collar TV, and of course would go on to do much more voice work and stuff after the fact, but Ahsoka Tano is certainly her biggest role. James Arnold Taylor playing Obi-Wan, as well as a couple other miscellaneous roles. A very extensive VO career going all the way back to Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge, also for Lucasfilm. Of course, notably Tidus from Final Fantasy X, and of course the long-running voice of Ratchet from the Ratchet and Clank series, most recently seen in Rift Apart. He actually began voicing Obi-Wan prior to this in the 2D Clone Wars series. So he was one of the few voice actors that kind of like carried over into this series as well. D. Bradley Baker, of course, playing all of the clone troopers. We've talked about him before when we did, I believe, the episode on the Bad Batch. But he was originally he was the original voice of Olmec in Legends of the Hidden Temple, as well as in the upcoming reboot of Legends of the Hidden Temple. He was also the voice of Daffy Duck in the first Space Jam movie. Klaus in American Dad, and of course, as I mentioned, he's been the Clone Troopers for many, many years now, and is continuing that on in the Bad Batch, which I believe just got announced for a season 2.
It did.
Tom Kane is in here as the voice of Yoda, as well as the narrator and Admiral Yularen. His biggest role prior to this was as, I believe, the professor on Powerpuff Girls, a show I've never watched. And
wait, what?
Yeah, I never watched Powerpuff Girls. I mean, it came well after my time in terms of like when that was popular, and I mean, in the same way that like
never really watched Powerpuff
I've watched like 2 or 3 episodes of SpongeBob SquarePants. Just
that's the crazier one.
I'm
old,
I don't think
you
that's
guys.
Crazier.
I don't know. Powerpuff Girls is older than SpongeBob, by a significant deal. So I would have assumed that.
I mean, at least not by a significant deal. I would say it can't be that much more.
Yeah, probably by 3 or 4 years.
I mean, are we saying that's? I mean,
if we're talking about our childhood animations, like there is a strong window of great childhood cartoon television that was produced by what was once arguably the greatest cartoon studio that ever existed, Cartoon Network. And I will die on that hill that Cartoon Network was the superior channel during that era. You Nick kids and Disney kids can kiss my butt.
I mean,
Powerpuff Girls made its official debut on Cartoon Network in November of 1998. That's like a year before SpongeBob.
No, yeah. SpongeBob. What year did SpongeBob come out?
Like 99.
Pretty sure it's later than that because SpongeBob came out when I was in the 6th grade.
Definitely was in the 90s. So, because I remember SpongeBob. Yeah, like SpongeBob was 99.
SpongeBob 99.
Okay, there you go.
Because like the
it's official debut. No, but it originally premiered much earlier than 1998. It was part of the like pilot programs of shows. They would put out like specials.
Craig McCracken originally developed the show as in 1992 as a cartoon short entitled Whoop-Ass Stew. But then it would be later featured in world premiere tunes in 95 and 96. Made its official debut in 1998.
There you go.
Yeah, so like little one-off things here and there. I mean, my cartoon era though was Doug, Rugrats, and Ren and Stimpy. That was like my cartoon block, and I wasn't into Nickelodeon kid. I like the handful of cartoons I remember watching on Cartoon Network were like the like reality series knockoff ones or whatever, like Adventure Island or whatever it was. Those ones.
Those ones came out years later.
I mean, like these came out when I was in high school or whatever, so it was just kind of a like I don't know. I was trying to date girls or something. I have no idea what the deal was.
Fair.
Why I didn't watch Powerpuff
fair.
Girls. I don't know. It passed me by.
Well, fun note about it, like clues that something was definitely different about me. My favorite villain on Powerpuff Girls was him. So, for anybody who knows who him is
that the praying mantis looking guy?
No, he's like he has lobster hands.
Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of. That's who I'm thinking of. Yes,
he's like the devil from Lobster Hands, but he's like 100% inspired by what's his character from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, we're on the same page. Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
gotcha.
The fact that
Tim
they
Curry?
were my they were Tim Curry. Thank you. The fact that they were my favorite villain says like foreshadows a lot about like a lot of things about me. So.
Anyway, Tom Kane also would go on to take over the role of Woodhouse after the original actor from Archer passed on. So he's been playing the role of Woodhouse in the more recent seasons. Nico Futterman playing Asajj Ventress, as well as TC-70, which is I believe Jabba's droid. She's another one, long, extensive video game career going all the way back to the video game Army Men in 1999, which I remember playing a lot on my PC.
Played that on N64.
She is the voice, pulled this for you there, Frank, of Dogan Boole in Psychonauts, the original Psychonauts. And then she was also the voice of Smellerbee in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And one of her biggest credits most recently is this TV show on Nickelodeon called The Loud House, which has many, many seasons and many, many episodes. So apparently that's what the kids are watching these days. Ian Abercrombie here playing Chancellor Palpatine / Darth Sidious. Has a career.
Just credits.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, pulled that one for you, Logan. Has a career going all the way back to the 60s, including the two things that I noticed and pulled out were he played Elaine's boss, Mr. Pitt, in Seinfeld.
Oh my gosh,
which I have never seen, but like
you ever seen Seinfeld?
I mean, I watched like
that's the biggest one of them.
I watched the final episodes of Seinfeld.
Oh my gosh,
you just watched the end?
I just watched the end. I was like, this is the dumbest show ever.
Trevor, I'm just gonna say it. I'm just putting this out there, you guys. I think Trevor in the 90s sucked.
that is
in the 90s. Trevor sucked. That is my definitive opinion.
Wild! I can't believe you haven't seen Seinfeld. How did I not know this?
Well, it's just Seinfeld and Friends. I didn't watch either of those. I was
okay.
Weirdly enough, I was a Frasier guy.
What were you do? I mean, Frasier's great. Frasier was great.
That's
like the weirdest one I like as a kid, though. I think.
I mean, that was the one that my parents were watching, at dinner time or whatever. So I would watch Frasier with them and stuff. But yeah, I just never got into Friends, never got into Seinfeld. Just weren't my cup of tea. I was playing video games. I was getting sucked into The Sims during those years, kids.
The fact that you didn't figure out a way to have like the TV on while you were playing The Sims.
I mean, I did, but the setup there was like the computer was in the corner and the big screen TV was behind me. So I had it like on and like was listening to stuff, whatever shows we were watching or whatever. But I just the layout of the room, I was not able to have both on at the same time.
I had a similar setup at my house.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know.
Yeah,
that is wild. That is
anyway,
wild.
I knew it was significant enough to pull in this guy who had a multi-episode thing on Seinfeld. I was like,
Mr. Pitt's
he's one of the best characters.
They will know this guy.
He's one of the best characters out of that show because he's so wild as like an older rich guy in New York, and even by Seinfeld standards, he's wild.
And then, yes, of course, I had to pull this one in as soon as I saw it. He also voices the character of Alexander Mayhew in 007 Nightfire.
Absolutely, he does. That's a totally great poll.
What was that? The 19th best game of all time, according to our Ultimate Video Game List show?
I do believe so, yes. Alexander Mayhew, the secondary villain of the game. Spoiler alert for a 15-year-old game. Great.
Yeah. Nobody's going to play it, so it's fine.
Yep.
It's great. We'll do a Let's Play of it. Don't worry.
Corey Burton here playing General Lotham, Zero the Hutt, and Kronos 327. He was in the 81-82 Spider-Man. He played a handful of different villain characters way back in the day. So he's another one. Very long VO career. He was also a mainstay in G.I. Joe and the Transformers. He has come up on this show in particular before because he was also in Hercules. He was in Atlantis: The Lost Empire. He plays, I believe, the French guy in that one.
I love that the mole.
Yeah. No, not the. I don't think the mole.
Yeah. There's the mole who's French, and then there's the Italian bomb guy.
I thought he was then maybe that guy. I thought he was Jacques. I thought. I don't
know. Jacques is the mole.
Okay, then sure.
The dude who eats dirt. Yeah,
he was Hugo Strange in Batman: Arkham City.
Great game.
He's been in a handful of the new DuckTales series episodes. And if you picked up Crash 4, he was Dr. N. Jin and nitrous oxide in DuckTales, in Crash 4, Crash Bandicoot 4, Back in Time or whatever that one was. Or, no, It's About Time. Is that the one?
Yeah, I think so.
And then he has done a handful of episodes of The Bad Batch as well. Catherine Tabor takes over the role of Padme Amidala from Natalie Portman. She has a Star Wars lineage going back to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, where you could have her join your party as the character Mission Val, who's a Twi'lek. She was also the voice of Penelo in Final Fantasy XII. And she was also the voice of Leia in Star Wars Force Unleashed. So this is, she had a good run of Star Wars things going into this. She's also in the aforementioned show The Loud House. Matthew Wood, of course, playing the battle droids, who we've given some love to here on the show before as General Grievous. Shout out to Chloe. Kevin Michael Richardson, another one of those prolific voice actors with 500 plus credits here doing the role of Jabba the Hutt. He was the voice of Goro back in 1995's Mortal Kombat. He is in Lilo and Stitch as I don't know Lilo and Stitch well enough. One of the aliens that's like on the hunt for Stitch, the big deep voiced one.
Oh, the mad scientist?
Yeah, probably. He was another one that could join your party in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic as Jolie Bindo.
Yep, that's him. Jolie Bindo was a great character.
In the Batman animated show from 2004 to 2008,
yeah, absolutely.
He was the Joker in that iteration.
The first two seasons of that show are great. It's so good. It's such a weird, different take on Batman. It's rad.
And then
and then they introduced Dracula, and then it gets weird.
Yeah, and the Justice League shit. Wasn't as good.
That's not the one that had the musical Meister episode, is it?
No,
with Neil Patrick
you're thinking of Batman Brave and the Bold.
There we
Brave
go.
and the Bold is the one you're thinking of. That was when Brave and the Bold came out when Cartoon Network started airing Batman stuff instead of Warner Brothers.
There you go.
Because Warner Brothers canceled their cartoon morning slate.
Yeah. Most recently, Kevin Michael Richard could be heard in the Amazon series Invincible as the Mahler twins.
Yep.
And then lastly of the main batch here, David Accord playing Rada the Huttlet, so aka Stinky. He's primarily a sound designer with a handful of VO projects. most of them through Lucasfilm stuff. And then the little smattering of people who did reprise their roles from the original films. Samuel L. Jackson in here as Mace Windu, Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, of course, and Christopher Lee making his return to the role of Count Dooku. They have a bad feeling about this. Sorry, go ahead, Frank.
I didn't realize that was Christopher Lee, and I was really impressed at the guy doing a really good Christopher Lee impression. And now that you said that, I'm like, oh, that makes way more sense. I didn't look at the credits or like who was in
Mace
it.
Windu. I did not realize that was Samuel L. Jackson. Like, that's a pretty decent Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah,
I just thought it was weird that they got back Christopher Lee and Mace Windu, but they couldn't get back.
Yeah, the rest of the
Hayden Christensen.
I mean, like both those roles obviously do get played by other actors over the course of the animated series. So I think this was more of a one-time thing because it's going to be a movie. So much so that one of the trivia things, I don't remember if I pulled it in here or not, but one of the other actors, maybe Tom Kane, who did Yoda, one of them recorded all the lines of Count Dooku, and Christopher Lee came in so late to the project that the animation was already done, and he basically dubbed to match the animation that was already done. Which
of course you could do because it was Christopher Lee.
Yeah. They have a bad feeling about this. Any guesses where this pops up in the movie?
Anakin, I'm going to say.
Anybody else?
I don't recall.
Trick question. It doesn't.
There you go.
It does not appear in this one. So this is the first one. If you want to count The Last Jedi, even though BB-8 in quotes has it.
That's true.
This was the first theatrically released film to drop the "I've got a bad feeling about this" line. In the galactic timeline of things, the Clone Wars film takes place in 22 BBY before the Battle of Yavin during the first year of the Clone Wars, a short while following the events of Attack of the Clones. So in between the end of Attack of the Clones and the beginning of this, the Battle of Christophsis, Anakin was knighted in order to fight in the Clone Wars, and at some point in there, it's not really ever specified, but he got that scar above his right eye. I don't think there's any actual origin story out there. It's just like in something he doesn't have the scar, and then in like the next appearance he does. We never get to see when he gets that battle scar, but
that was I'm not bringing lore. That is a makeup decision to make Anakin look more war weary in Episode 3, I believe.
I think too.
I'm just saying, like in the timeline of things, they never gave him that scar on screen.
I thought I might be mistaken. It's been 16 years, whatever it's been. But I thought in like the original like Clone Wars animated series, they had a thing there where like he gets a scar in like a fight with Asajj. Maybe that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Maybe I don't recall.
It's been literally like 16 years since that show came out, if at least. So
yeah,
I thought that's what it was.
So I went through and because there's a line. There's a line in the Wikipedia that is just Anakin Skywalker gains a scar by his right eye, and then if I go to the footnote on that, it just says the thing 501+1 depicts Anakin Skywalker without a scar during the Battle of Arantara, while Star Wars Adventures, The Clone Wars, Battle Tales 1, and Age of Republic, Anakin Skywalker 1, establishes that Skywalker has the scar by the time of the mission to Bangalore and the battle in the Corvair sector. Thus, the Battle of Arantara must have occurred prior. So that's it. That's what I'm saying is there is a thing out there where he does not have the scar, and then there's a couple things where he does have the scar, but you never actually see somebody like slash his eye or something like that to give him the scar. That's all I'm saying. But it happens early enough in the Clone Wars.
Yeah. Truth is, it's because when he was opening up a tin can for food, just never handled a can opener before.
I disagree. He got some sand in his eye and he went to scratch it so hard because of how much he hates sand.
I like that better.
That he sliced his own eye. Yeah.
It was originally just a small scratch, but he kept scratching it and wouldn't let Obi-Wan clean it, and so it got infected, and so now it's actually like a big old scar.
Yep.
But it's embarrassing because he didn't let his dad figure clean out his eye, and so now it's like a.
Other trivia we have.
I don't know what that was. I'm sorry. That was a weird stat.
Yeah,
I've had a long day today. I'm sorry.
Sure. This is the first Star Wars movie since Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, to feature the in-cockpit view of a jump to hyperspace.
This is rad. It's a rad fact.
George Lucas purposely did not use this iconic shot in any of the prequels so as not to lessen the impact of seeing it for the first time in Episode 4, A New Hope, assuming, kids watch the movies in numerical order. Like heathens. Like terrible heathens. Like, I love that he cared about that, but not that the biggest reveal of all cinema gets ruined if you watch them in numerical order.
I just think it's cool. Like it is like that first jump to hyperspace is rad in A New Hope. We didn't really talk about it when we did that podcast, but like that moment is so cool.
Yeah. This movie is comprised of 4 episodes that were originally produced for the first season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Had they been shown as separate episodes, they would have had the following titles: The New Padawan, directed by Brian O'Connell, production number 118. With the Jedi Fortune Cookie, which, for those unfamiliar, the Jedi Fortune Cookie is every episode of the Clone Wars kind of kicks off with basically a saying that's, a theme of the episode or whatever, and it got dubbed the Jedi Fortune Cookie. To teach is to learn twice. This episode would have ended with Anakin accepting Ahsoka with the whole the line that Cameron actually referenced in his reading.
It's pretty clear where it would end.
Yeah. You never would have made it as Obi-Wan's Padawan, but you might make it as mine. The next part was Castle of Deception, directed by Dave Filoni, production number 101. The Jedi Fortune Cookie for that one would have been The Wise Jedi Does Not Trust Appearances. It ends with Rex, captured by Ventress, contacting Anakin and Ahsoka and kind of giving away the game that, she's force tricking him or whatever. Castle of Doom would be part 3, directed by George Samilski, production number 103. Jedi Fortune Cookie, Nothing Worth Having is Easily Gained. This ends with Ahsoka, Stinky, and Anakin about to go to Tatooine. And then Castle of Salvation, directed by Dave Bullock, production number 104. The Jedi Fortune Cookie, The confidence we have in ourselves can easily give birth to confidence in others. That would have wrapped things up there. Worth noting that from this trivia thing, of those, I believe George Samilski and Dave Bullock are credited as like segment directors in there. Brian O'Connell, no credit whatsoever on the Clone Wars film, so don't know who he annoyed or whatever to be pulled from there. But anyway, when Ahsoka is addressing the clones in the hangar bay, a pink droid is standing next to R2-D2. This droid's name is R2-KT and was included as a way to honor the work of the 501st Legion, an international group of Star Wars costumers who perform countless hours of volunteer work for many charities. The droid was created in memory of Katie Johnson, daughter of the 501st Legion's founder, Albin Johnson, who died of cancer at the young age of 7. Some of the costumers built a pink R2 dubbed R2-KT for Katie to provide her comfort in the last days of her life. This was to reflect the scene in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, when R2-D2 watches over Padme while she slept at night. So that was a touching little nod to that. And probably, arguably like the best thing this movie gives us. When Matt Lanter auditioned, he was told he was reading for the part of Deke Starkiller and to play him as a cross between Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. Only when he got the part was he told he would be voicing Anakin Skywalker. The ship Anakin takes from the landing platform on Teth is called the Twilight. It is an old Corellian G9 rigger freighter. Skywalker continues using the ship throughout the Star Wars: The Clone Wars television series. Dave Filoni has stated that this finally gives some credit to Uncle Owen's claim that Luke's father was a navigator on a spice freighter from Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. That Dave Filoni, always thinking about things. As I mentioned earlier, this was the first Star Wars movie not to open number 1 at the box office, falling behind Tropic Thunder. This is also the first Star Wars movie in which the music is not composed by John Williams.
Noticeably,
but there were a couple moments where I was like, "Oh, that's a cool vibe to it that we haven't gotten in Star Wars prior to this." Like it had, like there were a lot of like drums and stuff to it.
I felt that when.
Oh, go ahead, Frank.
So I felt that with like Padme and some of the nightclub stuff, like when it kind of shows the outside, like you do get kind of that more like bassy and kind of like club like music. And I know that sometimes that shows up, but I was like, that's really cool. Like even the outside like establishing shots kind of have that.
Yep.
For me, it really hit when they're doing the climb up the mountain.
Yep.
To the monastery, and you hear like that synth rock as it's going through. It's like that's super wild to hear in a Star Wars film, like synth rock. But I mean, it worked.
I think there's a similar moment, and we might even be talking about the same moment when the clone ships fly in, and it's like that like it's like playing some kind of like rock song or something that's like going hard, and I was like, this is so awesome.
This is also the first Star Wars movie to not be distributed by 20th Century Fox. Any guesses on who distributed this one?
If it was Cartoon Network, was it Warner? No, it wouldn't be Warner Brothers, would it?
It was Warner Brothers. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And then there is a Wilhelm scream in here. During the opening battle on Christophsis, a clone trooper punches a droid and then is shot by another. He lets out the Wilhelm scream, but it is cut short. Full scream is heard when another clone trooper gets shot by a super battle droid at the Bomar Monastery on Teth. So that's the trivia I've pulled in here. So I've stalled long enough. Let's talk about this thing. What did everybody think about Star Wars: The Clone Wars? Frank and Logan in particular, I'm curious your thoughts because this was your first times seeing this film in the loosest of terms. So what did you think? Frank, let me know what your thoughts are.
I like the movie. Like I had fun with it, and I definitely enjoyed the entire way through. Like you said, this was my first time kind of watching it, and I also haven't even seen like the Clone Wars series that like spawned off from this. I think one of the biggest knocks against it for me, and I think we all kind of know this and feel this, is that it is very apparent that it is just a couple TV episodes that they kind of like cut or like they're putting it as a movie. And I don't even like hate that or mind that, but it definitely just feels like I was watching the Clone Wars, like the TV show, which obviously then spawned from this, but it's like, so there's some things I think it maybe could have been stronger, or there's even like I feel like there could have even been like more impactful things that could have happened in the movie, but it's like setting up a series.
Yeah.
So they don't do anything like crazy. They're just kind of setting up some new characters and kind of showing you the world we already know. But on that flip side, like I like Ahsoka a lot, and I also just had a good time with it. I also like the clones, and I like getting to see them in action. Like I liked the way that they filmed a lot of those action scenes, and it was very like war movie-esque, where you're seeing it from like the clones' perspective, and one person gets shot and then another person just comes and like takes their place. And they were very tactical and like calling for medics and stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. Like we don't always get a ton of that, and like even though we see the battles, it's like this is a very realistic take on like warfare.
Yeah, this is very much like boots on the ground, kind of like the war in Star Wars, really. And I like, even to that, it's like right from the off, the fact that you hear like, you know, the battle cries and stuff of people kind of like talking over comms instead of the traditional like, you know, intro and a long time ago in a galaxy, it even starts out with like, oh, this is going to be a different kind of thing, which I think is certainly at least interesting to kind of set up. Hey, this isn't like what you're expecting. This isn't what you're used to. So like, let's prepare you for that. I did when Logan and I were talking about this in the Slack channel a little bit last night. Like we joked about the idea that like, you know, the initial premise is introduced that Jabba's kid has been kidnapped, and then we just completely go to like a war battle for an episode's worth of the thing, and kind of forget about Jar Jar altogether. Like there's like one scene that like is dropped in the middle there to be like, hey, don't forget. Like, yeah, all this stuff's going on, but these guys are also trying to find Jabba's kid. But like, it's like such a forgettable thing that's like, oh yeah, no, that so when like Yoda shows up or whatever to be like, you guys need to go find Jabba, it's like, oh, that's right, that is the thing you guys said is going to be the through line of this thing. Thanks for like keeping that, you know, seeded throughout that clearly episode that was not at all designed about saving Yoda's kid. Logan, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's I actually kind of agree with Frank. I think it sounds like me and Frank might like it a bit more than Trevor does at the very least. I mean, I think it's fine. It's entertaining. It's pretty clearly not a movie by any other definition than it was released in a movie theater. But like, you know, I think that the Clone Wars is a good TV series that became, increasingly better over time. I think this is very reminiscent of like the first season of the Clone Wars, which I think most of us who have seen it would say is among the rougher seasons. It is just like 3 or 4 episodes stitched together. But I think that there are parts in that are really cool, that are really unique, right? It is like a different feeling Star Wars movie, and in some ways actually sets up really well next week's episode on Rogue One, and what that movie will do in an even like larger sense in terms of like boots on the ground, what the war feel of it kind of Star Wars is like. The big thing for me is that like I think part of what helps the Clone Wars TV series grow over time is Ahsoka as a character gets better over time. I think here she's probably at her like weakest point, and I also think that Anakin isn't that great. I don't particularly love Anakin's character here. Obi-Wan is Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's always going to be great. Obi-Wan's great in the movie. He's dope. But like Anakin, I still think they're trying to figure out like exactly how much to make him like charming, how much to make him just like angry, how much to make him kind of annoyed, and like I don't know if the balance is always nailed down right. Ahsoka, they're kind of going for like how much of a foil and like a conflicted personality should she be. And like obviously, as I'm sure we get to, the stuff with Jabba's kid is you either like it or you're more likely not liking it. But I think the opening battle is awesome. I loved everything about that. Like Frank said, I think it totally lands all those punches. I love the idea of like Obi-Wan surrendering and then just like stalling for time while like trying to like negotiate a surrender. It's super funny. I could see Ewan McGregor totally doing that kind of same scene. So like I think weirdly enough, the opening that has nothing to do with the rest of the plot is probably my favorite part of the movie. And then once you get into like the rescue mission, I think it gets a little bit wobblier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's like that is the whole like going back to the production order of things. Like originally that was complete like end of the first season kind of thing. So obviously the first season of Clone Wars notably is the most like anthology kind of season of it, where it is like they kind of skip around in the timeline of the war, versus like later seasons do get much more linear and just kind of like tell stories in order and multi-port arcs and stuff like that. So the idea that like Ahsoka is getting introduced, even though you would have probably spent like a season with her in the lead up to that point, is the same kind of like the fact that it's weird because like we also don't really get introduced to Ventress in it. Like she's clearly there, but she is already an established character as Dooku's apprentice, which is like complete news to us, really. Like obviously she kind of had a role in the 2D animated one as well, but since there's like blurred lines in the chronology of all that, it's definitely one of those like, it seems like for people that didn't watch that animated thing, you would have wanted to like let us know who this person is that you're like, you let us know who Ahsoka is, so yeah, why didn't you let us know who this like bad person is that's helping out Count Dooku? But yeah, I can understand that. Cam, what are your thoughts?
Rhoda crawled so Grogu could waddle.
Cameron's big on this connection.
No, like I came up with that idea during the like when we were talking about other stuff in the trivia, and I kind of came up with it in my mind, and so I wrote it down just to make sure I didn't forget it. It's just a side bit, like it's just a fun little thing that I thought of. No, I really do enjoy this movie. I actually felt like when I was watching it, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. It is just a nice palate cleanser from Rise of Skywalker. For me, it was just like a good way of just kind of like refreshing and being like, oh, fun. Okay, we're here to have fun. Like it's very clear this is what it is. Like it is what it always was and always has been. Yeah. Like, but it is a sign of, and I was surprised because I rewatched it and I was like, I am so weirdly like sentimental about Ahsoka showing up for the first time and seeing Anakin like immediately kind of like start getting it when it comes to like being a teacher and being a mentor, and seeing like his immediate growth of his character versus what we had ended getting in episode 3, or what we had gotten in episode 3. Ahsoka does so much to, and I'm just gonna say it does so much to explain away a lot of the random weird animosity Anakin has in Episode 3, in a very interesting way, and like knowing where her story ends, quote unquote ends, where it concludes, in the Clone Wars era, is very interesting to me. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like it was, like I said, nice palate cleanser. I love the fight scenes with the CGI models. I love like the attention to detail of like, there is so much about it. And like, you know, Trevor, you kind of like picked up on it. Like Dave Filoni, like this is really, my favorite thing about Dave Filoni is he talks about like when he found out he got the job at Lucas, was he thought it was the SpongeBob guys playing a prank on him. Because he worked on Avatar, and apparently in the Nickelodeon studio offices there was like a toxic relationship between the SpongeBob animation team and writing team and the Avatar: The Last Airbender writing team and animation team.
I don't know where you're pulling that from. He tells it in a very like jokey kind of way in the Mandalorian.
I picked up on like
thing.
There for me, that was like
I'm just saying, like, be mindful of like toxic stuff, given all of the toxic stuff that's like actually going around.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is true. Thank you for reminding me, pulling me back to reality on that one a little bit, or putting my feet back on the ground, so to speak. I was a little bit off the ground on that one, but like the way I heard it when he told that story was like it sounded like the way like some people talk about how they got like beat up by the jocks in high school.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't get that. I thought it was like fun like inner office pranks and stuff like that. But yes, he does talk about thinking about when he got called in for the interview, thinking that it was a joke.
Well, it's when George Lucas called him, and he's like, these guys from SpongeBob are pretending to be George Lucas. They found out that I went in for this interview, like they're being dicks, and I was like, and it's like looking from that point to where he ends up being, where he's like. He is such a respected and honored figure. Makes me also look at how Ahsoka, like I remember when Ahsoka debuted, I saw this film and I was like I just don't care for this annoying brat. She plays directly into the, I'm the plucky young character who's gonna solve all the problems, and that's why you're gonna love me. And it's like plays right into that. And like I had no idea that Dave Filoni would be able to use that to be like, yes, I want you not to like her at the beginning, so that when I flip the switch and you love her, you will like deeply care about her as a character. And it's some really wonderful tactful writing, knowing that you have the long runway that you have with a Lucas project. So Ahsoka, like I remember, like the only people that came out of like liking Ahsoka were younger kids and like old dudes that we're not going to talk about.
I mean, I think she was a role model character for like the little girls that were watching this.
100%.
And that leads into kind of my thoughts on it, that a lot of times like people will talk about how Star Wars is just always for kids. And I'm like, I don't think Star Wars has always been for kids. I think this Star Wars is for kids. Mm-hmm. And specifically all of the stinky stuff is for kids. I mean,
it's for everybody. Everybody needs to enjoy it.
I would say larger Star Wars universe stuff is for families. This feels like it's for kids, and that's my biggest gripe with it. Is like it doesn't feel like it's a representation of the all ages aspects of Star Wars, with the exception of like the opening Battle of Christophsis episode. Basically, like that is, I think, a really good episode, and it is a great reflection of what the Clone Wars could and would become in terms of like, it is that like wartime perspective that we're getting, and it is a different approach where we're getting to see the tactics and the strategy behind these characters, and we see many episodes where the separatists win and stuff, so it isn't just all victories for our heroes over the course of the series, and there are like moments of the Battle of Christophsis that kind of give a little bit of that flavor and give a hint of that, because could very easily have gone the other way, kind of thing. So like I like that, but yeah, everything involving Stinky, I'm just like, oh my god, I hate this so much. Like it's pretty rough. It drives me crazy. I don't understand why we're trying to make Jabba the Hutt a sympathetic character, and like
I agree with
a family man as a Hutt, given that there's a moment where Anakin's there in front of Jabba and Padme is on a hologram in front of Jabba, and I'm very starkly aware that like some 30 years from now, like their kid is going to be dropped in that pit to fight for his life against the Rancor.
While their daughter is
murder him.
While their daughter is like in a slave outfit, tied up and chained to Jabba the Hutt, and then will ultimately kill Jabba. Yeah, it's like I don't know why we're trying to like feel for Jabba in this. That's not something we needed to do. That ties into this whole like, what is Star Wars' obsession with giving redemption stuff to the wrong people? So yeah, that's kind of my, like, just in the back of my head all the time I'm thinking that. And then also like Zero the Hutt, I know he comes back throughout the course of the series, but he's just always such a weird character to me. Like,
yes.
The one of the trivia things I didn't pull in, but is he is a very direct homage to, I forget the like performer's name or whatever, but very, very flamboyant kind of character of like the the 60s or whatever. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Nope, that's not how you spell his name. Zero the Hutt. There he is. Truman Capote. That's who he's designed.
Okay, yeah.
It was just kind of like
that immediately makes sense.
whole weird vibe to that character that doesn't feel gangster and doesn't feel anything like Hutt-like. And I'm like okay with that being like a subversion of those tropes and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel like it's trying to be that. It just feels like it's trying to be like a weird, wacky character who's, trying to get one over on Jabba by kidnapping Jabba's kid. And yeah, just that whole arc is just very weird to me. I like the machinations of like Dooku and Sidious trying to like play Jabba against it and like framing the whole thing on the Jedi. But it just largely that arc just falls flat for me. And again, I think so much of that ties to stinky and I can smell him and ew, and he's greener. He's not the color green he's supposed to be, or all that stuff. It's just like, what? This is clearly geared towards the Saturday morning cartoon kids crowd kind of thing. And I just don't, it didn't say anything there for me.
If I
enjoy. Yeah, you can go.
To what you said earlier, I never saw it as like a redemption thing for Jabba. I thought it was a play off of.
Yeah, I mean, not redemption.
That's like even gangsters have kids. The kind of like old Tony Soprano, even though he's a absolute monster, he still loves his kids, kind of thing. That's kind of like what I took away from it, especially since he has like a cutesy nickname for his kid.
Yeah.
Which is weird too, like because if you understand Hutts, the Hutts hibernate inside their parent until they're almost adults. So the fact that he's outside of his dad, because also it's important to note, Hutts actually are non-gendered. So
yeah, that was definitely another thing in there. Like Stinky is like 10 years old at this or whatever, and yes, normally they stay, in a pouch, a la like a kangaroo thing or whatever until they're like 15 or whatever. But yeah, it just didn't really work for me.
I think I do like the idea that there's this weird cyclical nature of the Skywalkers and the Hutt family. Like they're meeting here, and they saved Stinky, and then 30 years down the road, Luke and Leia are gonna kill Jabba, and so like 30 years down the road, there's gonna be like the return of Stinky against fucking Leia and Luke in the expanded universe, or against
Rhoda the Hutt,
Ben
man.
and not Rose. I mean maybe Rose too, but
No, I said Rhoda the Hutt.
I love
His
this
name's
idea.
Rhoda.
No, yeah, I'm like Rhoda. I'm just saying, but like. I'd love the idea of like him come back and going after like the next generation of Skywalkers now for revenge.
No, because I don't want to think about. I don't want to think about Rey. I don't want to think about.
I mean, Rey is on Tatooine now, so
yeah,
just vibing.
There you go.
I would say
she's been like Rhoda has been scoping out the Skywalker homestead, waiting for a Skywalker to return for 30 years, and now one is back. And they're gonna duel.
She even said, "I'm a Skywalker." She admitted to it right there in the spot.
Yep.
He sent that person to ask, and that's
why
she was so determined. Like she's like, "What's your name, Rey? Last name?" She's like, "Skywalker."
What's your last name?
All right, we got him.
Radio's back in.
Rhoda's just like, aha, finally. after scoping out this abandoned farmstead that was supposedly like conspiracy was attacked, a moisture farm, randomly a random moisture farm. Yeah, gosh, yeah.
And it's just he's gonna kill her, and then Stinky sends its regards.
I love this. Yeah, movie.
There we've suddenly we've suddenly made this and Rise of Skywalker better.
Somehow that's how we did it.
100%.
Road to the Hutt. Man, I always liked I just thought, because as somebody who grew up like reading Star Wars stuff, I knew that Hutts normally aren't like infants or like babies. They like, and so I was like, this is super different than that. And also, but it's like, does that mean his dad hates him? And it's like, no, his dad loves him. This is weird, but okay. I like the idea of, yeah. Does it play towards more of the children aspect to it? Sure, but this was also a cartoon 100%. That was put in theaters. Like, it's not a live action film. Like, it is what it is. But I don't know. Like, I actually went in originally watching this movie. I thought it was just going to suck really badly. I thought it was just going to be really terrible because I didn't like the animation at the time. But like, I totally came around on it. It won me over. I started watching the show. I'm like, the show's kind of like whatever. Couple seasons in, I catch a few episodes and I'm like, this is really good stuff. So
yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of the just on that note, I did not watch this until maybe it was on like Netflix or something like that years later. And it was the show was probably like 4 seasons in at that point or whatever, because I just when this came out, I was like done with college and stuff and or having to go back to college because the economy was collapsing and all that stuff. So yeah, I just didn't watch the series, as it was originally airing, really until I think the Netflix era, where I was like, oh, I can binge all this stuff. Okay, I'll watch these things. And then I think I watched like a whole bunch of the series first, and then I watched this movie and I was like, oh, this movie's bad. So yeah, it's very weird to like think about that all in the chronology of life.
I think even because again, as someone who is a massive Star Wars fan, I didn't watch this in theaters because even at the time I was like, this looks not great. Yeah. And like it is just like not even a back to, it's just like walking in the front door kind of pilot for the TV show basically.
Oh, yeah. As a note, I watched this illegally on the internet. I did not go watch it.
Yeah, and like to be fair, like those opinions that I had 13 years ago are not incorrect. It is just a pilot for a TV show, and it's, it is whatever it is kind of thing in terms of how good it is. But I think, having the hindsight of knowing where Clone Wars will kind of develop from here, and having just watched, Rise of Skywalker last week, like, having just watched the sequel trilogy as a whole, like, I find this refreshing, like Cameron said, because this is just Star Wars having fun in some sense, right? And like that part of that is because it is just playing into, it's for kids, so like it's just a way more simple story. But in that it is kind of refreshing to be like, like this is just, we can like Star Wars again, right? Like part of the issue I think with like the sequel trilogy as a whole is that like they're so focused on like analyzing and critiquing and subverting and all stuff about Star Wars, and it's like, I just want a Star Wars story that's fun sometimes. Like I don't need it to be this heady. Like it's great when it is, if it's done well. If it's not, we get Rise of Skywalker. But like sometimes I just want, A New Hope, where it is just like, here's a dope adventure, let's go on it, right? And like this movie is not A New Hope, but it is definitely just like still a fun series of adventures, right? And like that is sort of refreshing after the last few movies we've watched.
Yeah. Frank, any additional thoughts on that front?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said, especially I think a lot of the stuff about like what you have to think about the Hutts, or even just that kind of inclusion side of it. I think sucks. And I think I totally agree with that. And I think there's still some cool stuff in there, but like that is definitely like a weaker portion of it, especially because like the opening battle sequence and like all of that is like super awesome. And then even like some of the, like I even really like the fight sequences when they're just trying to like hold off or the droids, and like so that the Anakin can get out of there with Stinky. But that's where I'm like, again though, but like if Stinky wasn't there and it was just some kind of like cool battle scene, like, we don't need the Hutt part of it, like for like most of it really.
Yeah.
But I do still like it, and I'm honestly I am more interested in than now going to watch the Clone Wars, like the series. And like I definitely kind of want to see where that, like I know some of where it goes and what they do, but I kind of now I'm like a lot more interested to see that, especially if this is like the weaker portion of it, which I definitely believe. But so it's like, oh, if they take this and they make it even better, I kind of want to keep that going. One final thought I would throw out there is there was kind of a couple moments while I was watching this where I was like, man, like if Attack of the Clones had just been like this, like I was like, why wasn't this Attack of the Clones? Like I know Attack of the Clones has to set up so much of what we get, but you could also just chunk out a ton of that, and like in the opening scroll or in a couple minutes, you could get us to like, and we could have this battle scene like with Obi-Wan and Anakin, and we could have all these other really awesome moments with Count Dooku and all this other stuff. And so that was just a thought I had a lot. And so that's also what kind of makes me want to go to the series is I'm like, okay, well, if they're doing the prequel stuff right over here, like I kind of want to check that out and see what it is. Also, shout out to Plo Koon. He was in this barely.
100%.
Yeah, he was. This definitely, like, I mean, I've long stood by the idea that like the Clone Wars as a whole makes Attack of the Clones and Rise of the Revenge of the Sith better, because they flesh out these. I mean, like this Anakin already is like so drastically different than chronologically the last time we saw Anakin, like moody whiny baby that just married Padme or whatever. Like this is already a little bit more cocksure Anakin that we get at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker, and already makes that character like immensely. Yeah, sorry, thank you. Already immensely that much more interesting of a character. So, and the fact that like Matt Lanter is going to get years and years to kind of like continue developing that character and making him more of a cross between Luke Skywalker and Han Solo versus whatever Hayden Christensen was asked to do, is certainly, I think, benefits. Any favorite moments or scenes that anybody wants to give some love to that we haven't already discussed?
I know we already gave a shout out to kind of a lot of the stuff in the opening battle, which was kind of my favorite, but I also really liked a lot of the stuff with Padme, and I didn't really expect that, like, because she showed up and at first like the doors open and I was like, oh shit, it's Padme, and then she goes off on like this whole like side adventure that I thought was like really fun. I kind of, again, going back to the Hutt thing, I kind of agree with you with what you're saying about Zero the Hutt and like even again just the Hutts in general, but I really like her like being the senator that kind of goes undercover in the really seedy part of town, and then even when things go bad, like she's like always like 2 steps ahead and like has them activate the like transmitter when C-3PO calls it. And honestly, specifically the part that I really liked is when the clones come to get her and she kicks out the robot's foot from under him and then just like takes his gun and like blasts his head away, and I was like, that's awesome. Like that was there's a lot of really good action in this, like, and that, like, and again, that like that would have been something that's really cool to see in the prequels. And I know one of the things we really liked like was Padme and how capable she was in a lot of the scenes, and I like that we got to see like more of that. And another thing I'd want to give a shout out to is I just forgot.
While you try and come up with it, I will give a shout out to the utter lack of Jar Jar. That's certainly a plus, in that vein of like, because obviously Jar Jar will make an appearance, here and there over the course of the Clone Wars, but I appreciate that in this thing that is so geared for kids that they refrained from having Jar Jar pop up there with Amidala or something, talking to Palpatine, because it would have been seemingly really easy for them to do. Did it stall long enough for you to recover your thought there, Frank?
Yes, thank you. The other one I wanted to give a shout out to, I don't want to take all the great moments, but I also really like that Obi-Wan fight with what was her name?
Saj Ventress.
Yes, yeah. Ventress, 'cause I thought she was cool. Coming from what you were saying earlier, like that's not a character I know because I didn't watch the Clone Wars, so she just shows up here and they know her, and it's Star Wars, so I just roll with it. I'm like, I get it. She's a Sith. Dooku's apprentice. They fought her. But I thought like that her fight scene with Obi-Wan I thought was really cool, and I liked seeing a lot of what, like, obviously Obi-Wan has those like one-liners, but I like that he even has a lot of those like dodges where he's just like moving out of the way, and like the way they use the Force and everything, and like and then the way she even escapes like by calling the ship in. Like I just thought that was a really cool like set piece and fight in the movie as well.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing I wanted to give a quick shout out to that I really liked is when they she gives Stinky the pill from like the med bay thing, and I really liked the digital doctor that was there, because I thought it was really funny when he's like, take one of these, and she's like, and then he's like, and if it doesn't work, call a real doctor, and then it just fades away.
Yeah.
I was like, that really got me. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah. I'll throw in like one of mine here as well. Talking about Ahsoka, I like that while she is introduced immediately as young and as, you know, the same kind of like brash, you know, arrogant Padawan that we saw Anakin as really in Attack of the Clones, to be a foil to Anakin here over the course of the series. I like that she's also like immediately capable, like, and like, you know, well trained and all that stuff, and not only in lightsaber combat and stuff, but also in, you know, the use of the Force and pulling the giant piece of wall down to crush all the droids and leaving Sky Guy rather, right in that hole. Like, I will always enjoy one of those kind of moments, and it goes back to, we have in Arizona here this like an old west town called Rawhide.
Rawhide. I love
that had like stunt shows, you know, with you know, cowboys out there doing their 6-shooters and stuff, and they had like a full set that had that as a bit, where it was like the facade of a house just kind of like falls at the end and like at the climax of the show, and the guy was always standing right where the window would come through, and he would just be like perfectly fine, but like you see the thing coming down, you're like, oh, that's gonna crush him, but nope, he was perfectly well positioned and stuff like that. So like going back to when I was like 5 years old and saw that, I love that, you know, kind of action set piece, and so every time we get one of those, you know, if it's handled well, I enjoy it, and I thought they did a good job with it here. And yeah,
you mentioned something I don't like, Trevor.
You don't like Sky Guy?
I hate Sky Guy.
You hate Sky Guy?
Really?
Yeah.
This is what I was gonna say. They develop those nicknames for each other way too quickly. It's like immediately. Like, you guys have not had any sort of relationship yet.
His for hers fits right away for me.
I didn't get that. I didn't even understand why he was calling her that.
Because she's so snippy, so he calls her Snips.
Yeah.
I also don't think it lands.
Like, I like that totally, because she's always like, well, what about this? What about that? He goes, you're just so snippy. Stop it.
Yeah, but he said it after like two interactions. Like it all.
She was
way
snippy
too
enough.
fast for me.
She was snippy enough that was that for me.
I don't think.
But
so.
Sky Guy, ugh, hated it. Hated it. I'm so glad.
I think neither.
Here's the thing. Snips sticks around. I don't recall if Sky Guy does. I don't think he does.
I think it does. Snips definitely sticks around, but like I also agree with Logan and Frank here that Snips is not at all well set up. It is like, quit being snippy, and then like, you know, 5 minutes later he calls her Snips or something like that, and you've by that point, because a lot of the dialogue in this is arguably very forgettable, you've completely forgotten that he called her Snippy earlier on, and that it's a reference to that. Whereas like Sky Guy is A, it rhymes, and B, Skywalker, so, you know, makes sense.
I thought it was like I don't want to say it was like she was being like disrespectful, but I thought she was just like, yeah, I know you're a Skywalker, you're Anakin or whatever, like I know who you are, but I'm gonna just say, oh, Sky Guy or Sky, whatever. Like it was like that thing of like, I'm just gonna purposely get it wrong to like kind of poke at him, like in like a fun, playful way. Like I thought that worked a little bit better for me, but that was just me.
Yeah. I mean, I can appreciate though. Hating those nicknames. They are silly, and again, like it's definitely not something you would have seen in the movies. Like we never get that kind of like, especially like among Jedi, because that would be like way too disrespectful kind of thing. But here on a kids show, sure, they can have nicknames, so it's not just always like Master Anakin and you know, Padawan Ahsoka or just Ahsoka. You know, got to throw in some variety there. Variety is the spice of life, as they say. Logan, any favorite moments you want to give a shout to?
So all of my big ones are basically the opening battle. I think it's all done really well. Again, one of the big moments for me is like I talked about, the scene with the Obi-Wan and like the Separatist general. I think that whole thing is really funny and really well done. I think that like Obi-Wan looking at me like, it should be out right now, and then like it shields up and he goes, all right, well, and then it cuts out is really well done. I think I love all the shots of the clone troopers like running around, like Frank said, kind of getting picked off like one by one, and like slowly get it whittled down as a force. I think it's super cool to see in a really interesting perspective in terms of like the Star Wars universe as a whole. Really, the other things I want to I would want to go over are just the things I don't like as much, which is a lot of the Hutt stuff. I think I here largely agree with Trevor. Like, I don't think it works for me. And more than that, I kind of disagree with Cameron. Like, I don't need to see Jabba the Hutt as a parent. Like, it doesn't, like, any element of, like, Jabba not just being a slug who's just the worst is like, that's not the Jabba the Hutt I need. I want Jabba the Hutt to be disgusting. I want him to be awful. I don't need, like, an endear inside of him with, like, a cute-ish kid. So those are always elements that, like, anytime, like, this to me is a little bit like Cameron's whole thing with, like, The Last Jedi, where, like, the main A-story plot of the movie is not really the A story because they keep getting distracted by other stories that are actually more interesting, and B, it is just continuously, like, the least interesting part of the movie is, hey, we have a mission to save Jabba's kid, and, like, anytime they go back to that, it's like, oh, right, this is what we're technically doing. And I think that you almost get to feel like watching the movie that, like, the directors and writers also, like, had made this the pitch they gave for the movie, and then immediately were like, actually, we have better ideas than this, and we have to kind of try to, like, figure out how to incorporate more of those and less of the Jabba kid storyline into the movie, because it very much has that feel to it.
Yeah.
I was worried. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was of the opinion I'm fine with Jabba being a parent. But then you're like, you agree with me about it being like The Last Jedi. I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, no, he was saying
like the spaceship thing.
Yeah.
So what are your kind of favorite moments or least favorite moments there, Cam? Before we wrap it up and move on to the report card stuff.
Yeah, I've already talked about a lot of mine. Like, kind of for my first, like, my secondary impressions that I've seen it again. But yeah, no, like, I think I've covered all of mine. I will say, I really, really, really enjoy the way that the animation team takes special note about individual lightsaber styles.
Mm-hmm.
This is, like, the fact that Obi-Wan's clearly using Ceresu versus Anakin, who's now picked up Jimso. Ahsoka's using a inverted Xi'an grip, which is we hold it backhanded like that. Asajj Ventress's own version of that same style, and mixing it with Atreyu, and then of course Makashi being used by Dooku is just absolutely masterful. Like, it just does it so well. The fight scenes, the war scenes themselves, like pitch battles. Love seeing anytime Rex gets to go out there and pull out his double blasters and start pew-pewing away at guys. It's since day one in the Clone Wars, like, animated film or animated series before this one, to this one now, this awesome, just like pew-pewing, double pew-pewing guy. Also get to see Cody. It's fun to see these guys that are, will eventually get, like, so much more fleshed out as individuals in the series later on. It's fun to see them, like, oh yeah, back then it was like, these are the guys from the movies, remember? And then they end up becoming, like, much more actually, like, main characters in the overall show. So
yeah,
really, things I didn't like, Sky Guy, I already mentioned. I will say other things I didn't like is, like, here's the thing, I do think that the idea is interesting about, Jabba, one of Jabba's larvae has been kidnapped, and in order to, like, broker a deal to use his hyperspace, like the Hutt's hyperspace lanes. Like, the fact that they're actually using, like, hyperspace lanes as part of a major plot point is awesome to me, because that's something that's, like, super, like, way more niche about Star Wars, is that there are actual, like, lanes of safe travel speed through hyperspace. Because if you don't, you fly into planets and die. Like, the fact that they're bringing that into it, the fact that they're like, this immediately after Battle of Geonosis, the Separatists immediately start taking control of the hyperlanes. All of a sudden it cuts off, like, and so for me the through line was, this is actually a war logistics movie. We have to use these back lanes that are owned by this gangster in order to supply our troops and, like, deal with things like the fact that, like, they were totally undermanned, despite the fact that they have a much larger army back in the Central Rim. So it's cool stuff like that I really enjoy. The stuff that I don't enjoy is just a lot of the dialogue is largely forgettable.
Or bad,
like badly written.
Yeah.
Like clearly like throwaway TV, like the scene where Ahsoka's like, and I was doing this, and she has like all the guys around her and stuff, and she's like in front of a clear like World War II inspired like bomber girl, like decal on one of the ships, and it's like once again it's this whole, and it like I don't like it, but here's the thing, it's because it's intentional because I'm not supposed to like her like that. But like the way that it's like she's kind of played up as once again being right all the time is annoying. Even though I know where it'll end up leading to later, at the moment it's still bad and annoying and poorly written. So I don't care for it. But
yeah. I real quick, I just want to say I'm fairly certain you made up all of those lightsaber techniques. I'm pretty sure none of those names are real things.
They are real things.
And no, you're lying. But I do want to give a shout out to the like tease of the line when like Ahsoka asks Anakin about like we can talk about stuff, like let's talk about the sand. And Anakin's just like, the desert is merciless, it takes everything from you. Like it's like, that's right, the last time he was here he murdered a village of sand people because his mom died.
I couldn't stop thinking about that.
Because they tortured and killed his mother. Yeah. Like, this is not a happy place for him to be back to.
Yeah.
This is not like, oh, he's home. It's a homecoming for Anakin. It's like, no, this is a bad place for him. And he becomes like a dark kind of like messed up person when he's on this planet.
Yeah. And he was a slave because of the Hutts, growing up.
Yeah.
So,
he was originally like, he was born into slavery in the Hutts. Yeah. This is like, it's a whole thing. Like, this is not a good thing for him to be back to.
It is like the opposite of what Luke's experience on Tatooine is. Where Luke's like, oh yeah, Tatooine's my home planet. It's like, it was boring, but it's fine. And Anakin's like, it's all pain and misery and sand. I hate it.
All I know is pain and suffering in this place, and I'm keep getting drawn back to it by my duties and like by what pulls me back here. Gosh, no, that's so good. That's so good.
And that's why I like that Dooku.
And then I don't go back for 20 years.
What Dooku has that line when he's like, oh, I feel like the pain and the sadness like inside you here. Like, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like Dooku's like, I can feel all these things that you're feeling that you're just like suppressing while being here.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and give this a grade. Let's dive into the report card. We grade the movie from A+ to F. Let's see. I always forget who kicks these off. Logan, what do you want to give this one?
Oh, I always go last.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then we're switching it up this time.
I think that this is so weird because it's so different than the rest of the movies. And like, even the movies that we'll watch at least the next 2 weeks, Empire's Dream is going to be its own weird thing. But like, certainly in like the Star Wars like saga films that are like actual movies, this is such a weird anomaly because it is like a TV show we're rating, right? And so like in one sense I want to be like, yeah, like in terms of what if it was just like a TV series episodes, I would give it like a C probably, but as like a movie that is having to compete against what the other ones are, yeah, then it would be like a D, I guess, a D or D plus, right? Like if we're actually having to compare it against the other Star Wars movies, it is not as good because it's not a movie, right? So it's like weird how. So like a D or a C is kind of where I would fall on that.
Okay. Do you want to like land on one of those?
We'll say a D plus to split the difference, basically.
Okay. There you go. D plus. Fitting for the show. Going in reverse order, since I decided we're doing that, I give this a D minus. Because I was like, originally I was like, I had it like marked down as a D plus, but then you're like, yeah, maybe I'll give it a D, and I was like, well, I clearly hated this way more than Logan did, so I can't give it a better grade than he does if he ends up giving it just a D. It's getting a D minus for me. It's not the worst of the worst or whatever, but it just barely misses the mark on that because it does have a lot of bad behind it, and I would gladly watch most of the actual series over watching the adventures of Stinky again. Cameron, where do you want to fall on this?
I fall onto it. I give it a C, like a standard C.
Okay.
There's but a big part of that is also like I kind of mentioned it when we were talking about it. I have such a hard time differentiating where I know where this film is going to end up leading to.
Yeah.
Where like a lot of the weaknesses end up playing into being strengths later on, and as it has this, like I mentioned earlier, a very long runway of multiple years where these stories get to develop, these characters get to change and evolve. And when I think about these characters, like I said, I got super nostalgic over seeing Ahsoka as like such a young Padawan. Like seeing this again was like kind of like oh wow, that's right, I forgot. Like it starts here, for this character and for this journey. So for me, it's I can't really pull that away fully, but I can recognize that like this is not well put together as far as it goes as a production. Like this got a rating from the MPAA, and I still don't think that they should have given it one. Maybe this shouldn't have been like done this way.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know.
That was another thing on the trivia. This is the last Star Wars movie theatrically to receive a PG rating. Everything else since has been PG-13.
Yeah. So like it's fine. I think it's fine family fun. There's enough stuff here, and all those lightsaber forms are real. So there you go.
I mean, I disagree still, but Frank, what do you want to give it?
I think overall I'm a little bit more positive on it, and I think originally I was a little bit higher score-wise, but I think Logan brought up a good point where it's like looking at it a little bit more critically in terms of like it being a movie and how does it stack up against the other ones.
It's weird, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like I just had fun, like, and even thinking about it and us talking about it, there is a lot of good moments there, but then I also have to totally agree with every criticism everyone has brought up. I totally agree with, so I can't sit here and act like it's like perfect, but that's why I think I'm going to just go with like C+. I was originally, I think, in like the B or B minus, but I think C or C+ is like totally fair for this.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So in the ranking of Star Wars movies, we got to figure out where we want to put this, because so far, of course, we have done the Skywalker Saga, and our rankings are as follows. Number 9, Attack of the Clones. Number 8, Rise of Skywalker. Number 7, The Phantom Menace. Number 6, Revenge of the Sith. Number 5, The Last Jedi. Number 4, The Force Awakens. Number 3, A New Hope. Number 2, The Empire Strikes Back. And number 1, Return of the Jedi. So any opening bids on where this one wants to fall?
I'll say I think personally I would put it 7th, right? I would put it ahead of, on our list, ahead of Rise of Skywalker and Attack of the Clones, but behind everything else.
Behind Phantom Menace too?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah. So it's, yeah.
So
it's 7th,
that would be 8th.
Yeah, because there are 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be 8th, yeah. Because I'd rather watch all of those, I think, than this, right? And I'd maybe, again, Attack of the Clones, this is weird because they're each weird movies in very different ways. But I'll allow that this is probably a more entertaining just because it's shorter than Attack of the Clones, which helps in the opening battle. So I'll say, yeah, it's 8th for me.
Okay.
On that list, how it's ranked.
Cameron or Frank?
I will second. That is exactly where I would put it.
Above Rise of Skywalker? Okay.
But below Phantom Menace, yeah.
Yeah. I would put it certainly below Rise of Skywalker myself, but it sounds like I might be outvoted there. How about you, Frank?
Yeah, for me, I was thinking it maybe below Revenge of the Sith, but I don't mind agreeing with you guys and just putting it below the Phantom Menace, because I definitely don't really have like a too strong of a will either way there.
All right, I'm going to be outvoted then, so this goes in at number 8, below the Phantom Menace and above the Rise of Skywalker and Attack of the Clones.
Not the worst movie, though.
Yeah, no,
It
definitely
is not the
not.
worst movie. So
No, Attack of the Clones
would-
is the worst movie. So there we go.
I would say we've got our bottom 2 pretty well locked in at this point. I don't think anything will beat Rise of Skywalker or Attack the Clones from here on out for the last 3.
I suppose it depends on how much we harp on the stupid things that Solo does.
There's a lot. There's a good point.
Yeah, but there's so much fun in Solo. I'm super excited to watch it.
I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah, you like Solo a lot more.
Admittedly, I am much hotter on Solo than I think anybody else I know. So
I think Solo has a lot of good redeeming things, and most of them involve Donald Glover.
Yeah, 100%.
But yes, so we will come back next week, not with Solo. That'll be 2 weeks from now. Next week, we are back with Rogue One, A Star Wars Story.
I'm so excited.
I can't wait.
So yeah,
Very excited.
that
I
is
have
going
not
to be
seen it since it came out. Yeah.
a fun one.
Same.
A little bit of extra credit, other suggestions if you like this one. This is the first one that has been like a massive shakeup on things because, again, we are now out of the Skywalker Saga. So surprisingly, 0 Skywalker Saga movies make its way onto this. The recommendations for this are Star Wars The Clone Wars, the TV show, of course, Star Wars The Bad Batch, Star Wars Rebels, Star Wars Resistance, which is another animated series in the pre-Force Awakens era, maybe into the Force Awakens and that era of stuff, but it is notably not in this like CG style. It's much more 2D animated, or just has a significantly different art style. And then we get 4 Lego Star Wars things that just because, like, especially because of how silly some of them are, I have pulled up the Disney Plus descriptions of these things in case you guys are curious. But first we have Lego Star Wars All-Stars, which is described as new faces team up with iconic heroes Han Solo, Chewbacca, Lando Calrissian, BB-8, and General Leia for adventures that span the Star Wars universe. We have Lego Star Wars The New Yoda Chronicles Clash of the Skywalkers, which is described as the enraged Emperor sends Darth Vader and his entire fleet to find and destroy Luke as revenge for his destruction of the holocrons. Luke finds inspiration from the last holocron. So that is like already a story in progress, apparently. Like Luke has already done this whole thing of destroying holocrons that apparently was a thing. Then we have Lego Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures. When Force-sensitive 12-year-old Rowan Freemaker discovers the Kyber Saber, an ancient artifact with a powerful connection to the Jedi, his world is turned upside down. So,
Star Wars is so dumb. I love it. It's
yep. And then lastly,
it's the greatest.
Lego Star Wars The New Yoda Chronicles Duel of the Skywalkers. You might be thinking, isn't that what you just said, the last one, Trevor? No, that last one was Clash of the Skywalkers. This is Duel of the Skywalkers. And if you want to know about Duel of the Skywalkers, this is
we do.
After fooling Darth Vader into thinking he was destroyed, Luke Skywalker voyages to Mustafar only to accidentally open the remaining holocron. So apparently there is this entire saga featuring holocrons
trilogy
in the New Yoda Chronicles, in Lego Star Wars The New Yoda Chronicles.
Catch that on a future D Plus show, so we can figure out what's going on in that saga.
Exactly, yeah. And these seem to be standalone little 23-minute, like they're basically episodes of something, but it's not the New Yoda Chronicles as like a series. It is every one is a standalone like 23-minute thing. So there you go. That is what you have as other suggestions if you like The Clone Wars, the movie. Extracurriculars. Anybody watching anything else on Disney Plus these days? Frank, you and I talked a lot about Loki when you were here in town last week. That was fun because Logan and Cam are not up on that show, so it was nice nerding about that with you. I will say, in that vein, I watched the like Marvel Assembled, which is basically their making of the series of Loki, and that was a real good one. In particular, in part because Tom Hiddleston like narrates the thing, and so yeah, that was really cool. And it's talking about having played 11 like that character for 11 years and like the growth that it has meant not only as an actor but in his just life in general. And the like there's a great scene where he talks about how much people responded to Loki after Thor and Avengers, that when he like went out as Loki at San Diego Comic-Con and like the audience just ate it up. He was like, I will never have another moment in my life like anywhere near like that. It's just like really cool. So shout out to that. I also watched Jungle Cruise.
Oh, nice.
Which is fun. Jungle Cruise is a fun little adventure movie. Very much I'm sure we'll eventually do like a D Plus show on it, but it is very much I'd seen other people kind of making this comparison as well, and it is very apt. It is The Mummy meets Pirates of the Caribbean meets what was the other one in there? Indiana Jones. There you go. Yep. It is a fun little romp of kind of all those. Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt are delightful. the guy, I always forget his name. The guy from like Friday Night Lights and Breaking Bad and stuff. Jesse Plemons. He has a very fun, eccentric villain role. And he's, fun anytime he's on screen in that little bit part. So yeah, check it out either in theaters or on Disney Plus Premium Access if you want to go do that. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you all for joining me to talk about Star Wars: The Clone Wars. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give some love to there, Cam?
There is. I want to give a quick bit of love to the 7 lightsaber forms: Shicho, Makashi, Suresu, Ataru, Shien/Jemso, Nimon, Geo /Vapod. Vapod, by the way, is the one that Mace Windu uses exclusively. So.
Yeah, I still don't think any of those are the things you said earlier in the show, but whatever.
I said Jemso, Shien, and like don't. You said Makashi and was not like you were like, yeah, you made that up. Suresu. Yeah, no, I know them. All right.
Sure. You can follow Frank at Irrelevant Jokes. Anything you want to give some love to there, Frank?
Yeah, just a quick shout out to our other podcast, That Nerdy Sideshow. This week's episode is you and Cam talking about Pokemon Unite, and also High School Musical, the series, season 2 specifically. So I definitely give a shout out to that. It was a good episode. I recommend everybody check it out.
Thank you. You can follow Logan at Lefty Logie. Anything you want to give some love to there, Logan?
I will give a shout out to Trevor Starkey playing some plane flying games out there on the youtube.com/thatnerdsite. Because I really enjoy them, and I really enjoy Trevor's tweets, and they're very nostalgic and sweet about him and his grandpa, and so you should go check all of it out. It's very good.
Yes, the grandfather that I no longer speak to in a post-Trump world.
I was about to say, I was like, I don't see them as being nostalgic about flying, sure, not about the grandpa.
Yeah, but
I think it's a sweet little connection. Yeah,
he's just an essential piece of that puzzle that I would gladly excise if I could. Yes, but thank you, Logan. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will echo those shoutouts as well as the latest episodes of That News You Care About. Last 2, of course, have been highly focused on the whole Activision Blizzard scene of things. I'm sure based on kind of the news that broke later this week, or yesterday, I guess. I'm sure next week's episode will probably be, have something to do with Steve Gaynor and Fulbright. So keep an eye out for all that, all that stuff on that show as a complete, 180 from this one. Here we're talking about fun Star Wars things. There we're talking about just the terrible, shittiest things in the games industry. So. Yay, we run the full gamut here at That Nerdy Site. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. And if you do feel so inclined, you can always help support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, class dismissed, and may the Force be with you.